Welcome to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of the Midwest. I'm your host, Stacy Mergenthal. In this fourth episode, I'm sharing 26 bakeries you should know about in Minnesota and South Dakota. From chocolate croissants and kouign-amann at Red Bench Bakery in Chaska and Excelsior Minnesota, and the famous and trademarked zebra doughnuts in Centerville, South Dakota, to a surprise menu item at Taste of Scandinavia, I'll briefly share about these bakeries that I have enjoyed, and I'll link to them in the show notes so you can learn more about them. One thing I've learned about bakeries is to call ahead. They are often closed 1 or 2 days each week, like Queen City Bakery on Tuesdays, and some, like Ellis Doughnuts, are closed in January and February. The Purple Pie Place in Custer, South Dakota is open in summer and fall and closed during the winter. As we go through this list, think about the bakeries you love in the Midwest and share them with me on social media or email me at stacy@randomsweets.com. That's STACI@randomsweets.com, and I'll add them to my list of places to check out. So for now, buckle up and let's hit the road to 26 bakeries you want to know about. If you've traveled with me, you know stopping at a bakery or local cafe is inevitable. They are becoming scarce, which makes them even more of a treasure. You may remember from episode 1 that I'm on a continuous hunt for the best blueberry donut. And depending on how soon I'm heading home, I like to buy extra treats to wrap up and put in the freezer at home. So let's start this bakery road trip in Minnesota with the one that's nearest to me, Hendrick's Bakery in Hendricks, Minnesota, where they have twice as many Facebook followers than the population of the town, which is 700. Although not under the same ownership over the years, there has been a bakery on Main Street in Hendricks since the 1920s, so 11 or 12 bakeries have been in this downtown area. It's a classic old-fashioned bakery with the green plastic or melamine trays filled with goodies and handwritten name cards, and then slid into the big bakery cases. There's donuts, long johns, caramel and cinnamon rolls, muffins, bars, cookies, Bismarcks, and homemade breads and buns. They have one of the best glazed blueberry cake donuts, and then in the fall you must try their pumpkin cake donut with cream cheese frosting. From Hendricks, let's scoot up to Bemidji, Minnesota, to Raphael's Bakery Cafe. Now, I've only been here once, and actually Jason and I are talking about our weekend trip to Bemidji in an upcoming episode, and this bakery will be included. We ate breakfast here and picked up a few donuts. They have an extensive bakery selection. There was a line in the bakery, and there was a waiting line or a waiting list for the cafe. The whipped honeymooner and maple fried cinnamon rolls were really good. Now we're going to head to Minneapolis and St. Paul. Our first stop is Annie Kowalski's Market. In the morning, get there in the morning for the best selection from their bakery case. We like the maple sticks, kouign-amann, which is kind of like a caramel roll, but I feel like it's fancier, more of a pastry. It's like a cross between a croissant and cake dough with caramelized sugar. We really like their blueberry bran muffins. When my sisters and I are there together, we'll count how many are left and see if we should divide them among each other or just let the other take the couple that are left. My sister Heidi really likes the Morning Glory muffins at Kowalski's Market. And really all their muffins are good. I like the pistachio, the pumpkin, and the banana chocolate chip. They have excellent banana bread with or without nuts. And chocolate chunk cookies and breads. Like I usually pick up a loaf of the sunflower seed bread. I have a loaf of that in my freezer right now from when I went there a month ago. They have 11 locations across that metro area, so you should be able to find one that's close to you. And if you listened to episode 2, you heard me talk about the Kowalski's 30th anniversary cookbook and my hopes that they create a new one for their 40th anniversary here in 2023. And who knows, my sisters and I will probably end up doing an episode talking about Kowalski's itself in an episode. So speaking of grocery stores, I'm including Lunds and Byerly's on this list because they too are a grocery store and they have a really fine bakery selection in their stores too. Mostly I like to stop in there to grab a fresh loaf of their Minnesota nice bread, but I always get sucked into their pretty dessert case. They have these fancy tarts and cheesecakes and cakes. But the Minnesota nice bread is a multigrain bread with oats. And then my favorite part is they have pumpkin, sesame, and sunflower seeds in that one bread. They also have these really good, what they call corn toasties. They're a sweet, really thin cornbread circle, and they kind of remind me of a muffin top. So I usually try to pick up a pack of those, and they freeze really well too. Lunds and Byerly's has 27 locations in the Twin City area and then one in St. Cloud. For people who like cheesecake, go to Muddy Paws Cheesecake in St. Louis Park and pick up a few slices from owner Tammy Cabrera's many flavor options. It's not a sit-down place, but you can take it to go. She caters a lot of parties and weddings up in the cities. And then also look on their website to find out which of the Twin Cities restaurants have Muddy Paws Cheesecake on their menu. And she also has a cheesecake truck. It's so cute. That's out and about in the summer. For caramel and cinnamon rolls as big as your head and other scratch-made goodies, go to a Keys Cafe and Bakery. Now remember, we're still up in the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area. They've been in business since 1973. They have 7 locations in the cities and then one in Hudson, Wisconsin. They have lots of good menu items. Breakfast, the pancakes are as large as the plate. They have really good soups and chilies there. Good chocolate cake. Overall, that's a really good sort of small town feel cafe. Now, if you're a lover of chocolate, you must go to Rustica and get yourself a handful of bittersweet chocolate cookies. These are so good that they sell them in 6-packs. There's 2 locations, one in Edina at the Southdale Center. I'm pretty sure it has its own entrance, so you don't have to go through the mall in order to go to Rustica, and one location in Minneapolis. They have breads, pastries, desserts. You'll want to take extras home, like the almond Danish that they have. So this next bakery is a new one to me. I've only been there once. In November, my sisters and I ate breakfast at Yum Kitchen and Bakery at the Minnetonka location, and we cannot wait to go back. I was really impressed with their bakery selection. I mean, we went there to have breakfast, and I knew they had baked items, but I was really impressed. And I already can't wait until next fall so that I can go back and get their Minnesota maple frosted cookies and their pumpkin bars, which it was one of the best I've ever had. I don't know what they put in that frosting, but it was not just your basic cream cheese frosting. It was very creamy. I also had heard about the patty cake for quite a few years at the Yum Kitchen and Bakery. It was worth the calories. It's a chocolate cake with buttercream and then cream cheese frosting. And they also have a location in St. Louis Park and one in St. Paul. Now, next time I go there, I want to order, they have what's called fancy schmancy tuna salad, or I'll try the dilled egg salad. So now let's buzz over to Honey and Rye Bakehouse in St. Louis Park. It's a bakery that my sisters and I have gone to a couple of times. Again, lots of pastries like morning buns. They have scones and croissants, cakes. They make breakfast sandwiches on their homemade biscuits or scones. They have cookies and pie. I don't remember anything super specific, but I do remember having a ginger cookie with the big sugar chunks sprinkled on top. We all 3 came out of there with a little box of some goodies, and we enjoyed all of it. And Honey and Rye Bakehouse also has a location in Minneapolis. So we're driving to St. Paul for our next sweet spot. Tucked inside Cosetta, which is an Italian restaurant and market at the intersection of 7th Street and, at 7th Street West and Chestnut Street. It's just a few blocks away from the Xcel Energy Center. It's their pasticcera. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's their bakery. They have gorgeous cakes. They have tarts, Italian pastries. They do cheesecake. And then Italian cookies like palmiers and the checkerboard cookies. I mean, it's so pretty in there. They have these beautiful like chandeliers and everything is just really pretty. They also make a really excellent cup of coffee and cappuccino. And my daughter's favorite reason to come here is the mango gelato. So it seems like they typically have about 12 gelatos in the case. Maybe I think there's a few sorbets at a time too, but some of the gelatos are flavors like pistachio, cannoli, amaretto, tiramisu. 2 different times now I've brought a little cooler with me and then packed a container on ice of the mango gelato and brought it home to her. And it seems kind of plain of me, but I really like their chocolate chip cookies and their chocolate layer cake. So they have this little, you can just buy it by the slice, the layer cake there, and eat it while you're there, take it to go. But I'll actually go into their little market next door and buy a whole chocolate layer cake, which they have available in their frozen, in their freezer, and a lot of times in their fresh area. And then I'll just bring it home and put it in the freezer. So when we need something or want something at home and I don't have time or feel like baking, I have this really good chocolate cake from Cosetta. Now, for all you Scandinavians out there, which I'm assuming there's a lot, one bakery that you must stop at in Minnesota is Taste of Scandinavia. Not only do they have your classic bakery cookies and muffins, they have breads and other treats, but they make from scratch the traditional Scandinavian treats like our grandmas did, like the real potato lefse, rosettes, Norwegian almond kringler, cardamom butter cookies, those are hard to find, and the Finnish pulla bread, krunkaka, and other things. So I recently ate a breakfast that I wish I could have every week at their Bloomington location. It really changed how I think about lefse, because when I was growing up, we always had lefse from my grandma, and it was usually room temperature, spread with butter, sprinkled with sugar. But we didn't use it for anything else or eating meals. So here's this breakfast. My sister Callie and I ordered the Norwegian lefse breakfast, which is scrambled eggs, diced ham, and cheddar cheese, folded up into a large round of lefse and then served with a side of salsa. At the Bloomington location, I had them add hash browns to mine, and it was the most delicious and memorable breakfast. Like, we all have been texting each other about how much we want to go back and have breakfast again. Because my sister Heidi, she ate pulla breakfast combo that was ham and eggs and then French toast. Now, this French toast she just raves about it. So it's made with grilled cardamom pulla bread and then topped with caramelized green onions. Green onions. That would be terrible. Caramelized green apples, whipped cream, chocolate shavings, powdered sugar, and lingonberries. On our visit to the Little Canada location earlier this year, Heidi shared an order of warm lefse with butter and cinnamon sugar with us. So again, thinking of it differently, even though it's the sweet, but it was warm, and we actually hadn't had it warm before. And then here's where the surprise menu comes in. My sister Callie ordered, right when we were all finished ordering, she ordered Swedish wontons and then made us close our menus so that we couldn't be surprised, or, so that we couldn't see what they were, that we would be surprised when they came out. So Swedish wontons, here's what they were. It was a lefse filled with lingonberry cream cheese, fried to a golden brown, sprinkled with cinnamon and sugar, and then served with like a homemade whipped cream and chocolate shavings. So you take the big round of lefse, you're cutting them into those smaller pieces and then folding that lingonberry cream cheese into like little lefse pockets, wontons, and then frying them. We're definitely looking forward to getting those again too. And we want to give a shout out to Debbie, who was the manager at Bloomington, because she was so delightful that day. She really made our recent visit a fun one. They also have a third location in North Oaks. All right, you guys, we're on our last Minnesota bakery. So how are you doing so far? I hope you're feeling like you need to take notes or listen to this episode many times. Our last Minnesota stop brings us to Red Bench Bakery with locations in Excelsior and Chaska. This is where I get my favorite almond croissant. They also have an excellent kouign-amann. And sometimes in the fall they make, it's not always the fall, I think it depends on when things are available, but it seems like in the fall they make a loaf of autumn rye, which is a rye bread and has a hint of maple. They also just have your everyday and seasonal breads and hand pies and danishes, and then they also serve sandwiches on their homemade breads. So before we leave Minnesota, I just want to mention Patisserie Margot in Edina. I haven't been there yet, but last summer I was assigned to write an article about it for Edina magazine. I researched and conducted one interview and then came down with COVID and couldn't write the article. But it's been on my mind ever since, and I'm guessing Patisserie Margot would have been on this list if I hadn't gotten sick. Their menu includes beignets, turnovers, croissants, Danish cake, tarts and cupcakes. They have cookies and bars. Then they also serve sandwiches, soups, quiche, so people go in there for meals, not just the baked goods. But the Edina community, they really flock to Patisserie Margot, especially on Saturday mornings. And when I did this one interview, I was FaceTiming with a customer who took me on a tour of Patisserie Margot, and the parking lot was so full that you'd have thought there was an event happening there, but it really is just because that's the way it is on Saturday mornings, he said. People were sitting outside, they had their dogs with them. It really looked like a fantastic place. So that's Patisserie Margot in Edina. All right, it's time to head west to South Dakota. Our first stop brings us to the town of Flandreau. It's about 6 or 7 miles off Interstate 29. The Flandreau Bakery opened in 1929, and it was run by 2 generations of Duncans before they retired and sold the bakery just back here in January of 2022. So it started with the dad, and then 2 of the Duncan brothers, they ran it until they sold it in January of 2022. So for nearly 94 years, they've been in that community. There's so many memories of people growing up there. They come back when they come back to visit family, and they have to get to that Flandreau Bakery. They make really good mocha cakes. So this is where I've gotten the best mocha cakes. They're rectangular bars of, and I don't want to say bars because it's not a bar, but it's rectangular piece of a light and fluffy white cake. It's frosted on all sides and the ends with a white frosting and then rolled in chopped peanuts. There's no mocha in them. I'm really not sure why they're called mocha cakes. I think I've also heard them called gold brick or brick bars. I just know from personal experience that they freeze really well. So if you get your hands on some, I would buy extra. Now, I haven't been there since the new owners took over, so I would recommend calling first just to be sure that they're open. From here, we'll head south to Sioux Falls for 3 places I like to stop for a special treat. Queen City Bakery and Josiah's Coffee House Cafe and Bakery, both are downtown, and Breadico Sourdough Bread Company in the south central part of the city. Queen City Bakery is closed on Tuesdays, so I avoid going to Sioux Falls that day because this is the place where I get my favorite chocolate chip cookie. It's just the right amount of like crispy, a little bit crunchy on the outside, but it has a really soft and chewy but thick inside. I've tried to recreate the texture of this cookie and I can't figure it out. So their s'mores cookie is also really delicious. It has a similar texture but crispier edges because of the marshmallow kind of coming out and getting sticky and hard. They have pastries, cupcakes, quiche, bars. They have this lemon bar and a triple chocolate brownie that's really good. I enjoy their Brooklyn blackout cake, and the chocolate espresso cake, layer cake, is really good. In the summer, they have a lemon polka dot cake, so if you like lemon, that's a good layer cake. And then in the fall, they have carrot cake. Now, Josiah's Coffee House, Cafe, and Bakery, this is an all-around great spot for you and your dog. They're pet-friendly, so you can bring your dog in to eat breakfast, lunch, drink coffee, take home a special bakery treat. The food's fantastic, so's the service. Yes, my daughter works here. But the bonus is their baked goods like cheesecake, pie, cake, and then they have just rotating bakery items. You never know what you'll find when you go in there, but it's always worth it. They have a lot of seating area. They recently did a renovation, adding more seating area. When it's nice outside, there's some tables out there. Parking can be a little bit tricky here, but if the weather's nice, it's worth the walk if you don't find something really close. But there is metered and ramp parking right nearby, and it is free on most weekends and holidays. But just note that you'll want to know about parking there, and that one is at Josiah's. So before we head out of town, we're going to buzz into Bredico Sourdough Company. We're going to pick up a loaf of sourdough, of course, and a loaf of sunflower bread, and then a chocolate pistachio croissant and an olive oil chocolate chip cookie. Now, Bredico used to also be downtown, but they've moved to a different location in Sioux Falls in a brand new building. They make all their pastries and cookies with a fresh milled wheat that's grown in South Dakota. Now, there's no seating in here, so you can't sit in here and eat. You'll take your items to go, but there's a good selection of pastries, caramel rolls, sourdough cinnamon rolls, cookies. They have turnovers with fruit in them, quite a variety of croissants. And then they also have a little pantry items area where they sell olive oils and olives, jams, wine. I'm pretty sure I saw a little cooler in there too, where I think they have some local cheeses and eggs too. I almost left Sioux Falls without stopping at Flyboy Donuts. This place has the largest selection of donuts in Sioux Falls that I know of anyway. So if I'm wrong, let me know, but they have Long Johns, glazed twists, turnovers and fritters. Of course, they have donut holes and Bismarcks, the honeymooners, caramel and cinnamon rolls, cake donuts, glazed and frosted raised donuts. I've only been here a couple of times. It's probably a good thing. But everything I've had is delicious. They have 4 locations across Sioux Falls, and 2 of them have a drive-through. So let's head south out of Sioux Falls and go to Centerville so that I can introduce you to the Zebra Donut. The donut so good that Ellis Donuts, owners Keith and Janine Ellis, trademarked the name. Now, Keith spent many years perfecting it. It's a marbled chocolate and vanilla donut, thus the sort of zebra stripe effect. And it's dunked into a sweet glaze and then hand dipped into a secret homemade chocolate frosting. Eating this donut fresh from the bakery, it's just like some kind of a different experience. It melts in your mouth, almost like how cotton candy just disappears. It's hard to explain. You just have to try it. But they often sell out of the Zebra Donut by 9 a.m. When I interviewed them for a story once, they said that they can easily sell 1,500 Zebra Donuts in a week. Now, the population of Centerville is only 922, so you know that people are driving here just for the bakery. And it's an hour and 35, 40-minute drive from my house, and I would drive there just for the donut run. But the Zebra isn't the only reason to make the drive to Ellis Donuts. Their bakery cases are jam-packed, of course, with all the traditional treats that you would expect to find at the old-fashioned bakery. There's turnovers, Long Johns, the jelly and custard-filled Bismarcks, raised donuts, fried donuts, cinnamon Danish, cake donuts. They have cinnamon pretzels, maple sticks. Those are fantastic. I would pair them with a Zebra donut any day, and lots of fresh breads. Now, if you're like, well, I thought it was the Royal Bake Shop that had the Zebra donuts. Well, most people around here know this bakery as the Royal Bake Shop because that's what it's been called since it opened in the 1940s. But Keith and Janine Ellis, they bought it about 26 years ago, and just this last year they renamed it to Ellis Donuts. So Keith worked at Royal Bake Shop when he was younger, prior to them purchasing the bakery. And then they bought the bakery, been running it for 26 years, and now they renamed it Ellis Donuts. But it's still all of the same recipes and same things that you will love. Another small town bakery that I learned about for that Food Network project is the Tyndall Bakery in Tyndall. The bakery is renowned for its Czech pastries, most notably their kolache. Now, I have no idea if I'm saying this right, but it's spelled K-O-L-A-C-H or K-O-L-A-C-H-E-S. I think it's kolache. You guys can correct me. It's sort of a puffy yeast dough baked with a filling like a cherry, apple, lemon. Oftentimes you'll see poppy seed or cream cheese, and apricot or prune are probably some of the older versions. I mean, they still make apricot and prune. So this dough is filled with that filling and then drizzled with a little glaze. Well, they're baked and then drizzled with a little bit of glaze and sprinkled with a hint of streusel. So you have this puffy dough with a filling like a cherry filling, and then it's baked and then drizzled with a little bit of glaze. This is the recipe they've been using, the original recipe to the bakery, which has been there since 1905. So along with that Czech pastry, the kolache, the Tyndall Bakery is also known for its German kouign, which also happens to be the state dessert of South Dakota. Now, this style of German cake starts with a sweet dough in a pan, like a 9-inch round pan, that's filled with a fruit and then topped with a custard base and sprinkled with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar and baked. And that's kouign. Now, that's spelled Kouchen. Again, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's a German dessert. And if, in case you're wondering, yes, that bakery, the Tyndall Bakery, is filled with all those dessert treats that you would expect to find. But these are the special ones that are there. Tyndall's only about 55 miles west of Centerville, so it's kind of down in that southern part of South Dakota. And that area really celebrates the food cultures of the Czech, including the popular Czech Days in nearby Tabor, South Dakota, where there's an annual kolache competition. So now it's time to hop on to Interstate 90 and get ourselves to Wall Drug in Wall, South Dakota. Now, you might think the only reason to stop at Wall Drug is for the free water, but get out your wallet and buy a box of their famous cake donuts, frosted with chocolate, vanilla, or maple frosting. If you do have time to sit down, I recommend eating a hot beef commercial. And if you don't know what that is, I describe it in episode 1. Now, there's 2 places in Rapid City that I want to share with you. I've been going to the first one, Harriet and Oak, for many years, since my kids were in hockey and we would travel out there. It's a really cool and funky coffee shop there's a vintage Volkswagen van parked in the middle of it. And I think there's even a table inside it if you want to sit inside the van to have your coffee. They have a location in Spearfish too, but I haven't been to that one. So I'm just speaking about the location in Rapid City. And in addition to the coffee and tea drinks that they have a full menu for breakfast and lunch and a small bakery case with homemade goodies like Pop-Tarts, brownies, scones, pumpkin bread, and 7-layer bars. All right, but what I really come here for is the hot and savory breakfast pasty filled with ham, egg, cheese, potato, green pepper, and just a little bit of onion. Now, these pasties are made at King's Pasties in Lead, South Dakota. So it's like a handheld meat pie. So they're all closed up, crimped on the edges, so they're all closed up. But these are pretty large, so I'm glad that they serve it to me on a plate with a fork and a knife and don't expect me to eat it as a handheld meat pie. Harriet and Oak is in the former Dean Chevrolet dealership building, which dates back to 1929, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. There's seating on the main level with what you could imagine, lots of big windows. It was an old car dealership, so lots of big windows, and then a cozy little seating area that they made upstairs too. A bakery I discovered a few months ago when I took my daughter and a few of her classmates to a surgical tech conference in the Black Hills is Jerry's Cakes and Donuts in Rapid City. Now, I got there later in the morning. It was a Saturday morning, so I got there a little bit later in the morning, and normally I would order anything with maple, but it was everything, the maple things were gone, but they had a ton of stuff there. I don't recall what I got, but I know I had a box and everything was really good. So I definitely noted it and added it to my list of must stop again places. So if you're out in the Black Hills or Rapid City area, stop at Jerry's Cakes and Donuts. But I think get there early would be my advice. So if you're in the Mount Rushmore area, chances are you'll probably visit Custer State Park to see the roaming buffalo. So you must stop at the Purple Pie Place in Custer. They're open for lunch and dinner in the summer and fall, but they are closed in the winter. They have good comfort meals. I know they have chicken pot pie, mac and cheese. They have soups and sandwiches. They do paninis, salads. But it is called the Purple Pie Place, and they're known for their pies. So they have the classics like cherry, apple, blueberry, peach, and then a little more unique maybe to South Dakota, they have rhubarb, strawberry rhubarb, raspberry rhubarb jalapeno. Yes, we love our rhubarb here. And bumbleberry, which is so delicious that I swear when I was eating it, I wanted to lick the plate, but I didn't. We're leaving the Black Hills without getting rammed by a buffalo, and we're heading to Pierre. The state's capital is Pierre, and we need a sack of powdered sugar donut holes injected with an addicting sweet cream filling from the donut shop. Now you have to get here at sunrise because once they sell out for the day, they lock the door. They're done. Now I rarely go to Pier anymore, but we used to go there a few times each winter for my kids' hockey games and tournaments, but I didn't learn about the donut shop until the kids were both out of hockey. My friend, cookie expert Stacy Sudkamp, she owns Figtails Cookies in Flandreau. She grew up in Pier, and she's the one who told me about the donut shop. I still can't believe I never saw it, but I mean, it's hardly a block off of the curve coming into Pier on the east side of town, so you just barely miss it out of the corner of your eye. We'll stay on Highway 14 for our last 2 stops. Can you believe it? We're down to our last 2 stops. I hope you're still with me and making your bakery list. So the next up is the donut shop in Huron. Now, yes, we just said the donut shop in Pier. This is completely different, and it's the donut shop spelled Shoppe in Huron. So it's a little different spelling, but they have excellent donuts. And my favorite there that I had is the Honeymooner. It's a glazed, raised donut with chocolate frosting, and then it's filled with white cream. There's different versions of the Honeymooner, but mine usually that I like to order is the one with the chocolate frosting and the white cream. So there's the donut shop in Huron, but mostly I like to tell the story of how we found this place. Now my kids probably don't appreciate it, but you see, once upon a time when Kalani and Sagen were in high school, they went out to the state fair in Huron with some friends. And that fun night resulted in a not-so-fun visit to the Beadle County Courthouse and a sit-down in the state's attorney's office soon after. Well, when that day's lesson for them was over, I took myself for donuts. And since they were with me, I let them order some too. Are you ready for our last stop on this bakery road trip? Because here we are. We are stopping in DeSmet, the childhood home of author Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're going to Ward's Store and Bakery, where they serve breakfast, hot soups, meals, and a small but delicious section of donuts and Bismarcks. They have turnovers and cookies. They also stock in, because it is a store also, they have a little boutique in there and kind of a store. They also stock made in South Dakota products like Galen's popcorn. They have local honey. They have some homemade local soaps and books that South Dakota authors have written and published. Well, we put on a lot of miles visiting 26 bakeries you should know about in Minnesota and South Dakota. I hope I was able to introduce you to a few that you haven't heard of before. And I know that there are plenty more out there for me to explore, so let me know where they are. And be sure to email me with your favorite Midwest bakeries at stacy@randomsweets.com. I'll link to as many of these places that I can in the show notes of this episode, but you can also search randomsweets.com for some of these bakeries that I've already written about and see some photos in there as well. Thanks for listening. Jason and I are working on an upcoming episode that we share the 5 food places in Bemidji, Minnesota that we enjoyed when we went for a weekend of college hockey. And Kalani and I will soon share the vodka pasta recipe that she found on TikTok and had to have me make, and all the things that we love about eating and shopping at Cosetta in St. Paul. Until next time, please leave a review and rate this podcast. It really helps give it more visibility. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you can binge listen when you are bakery road tripping. Happy New Year and sweet wishes.